Welcome to Washington Watch with Congressman Walter Jones. Each month, we take a look at the events happening in Washington, D.C. and how they affect our lives here in eastern North Carolina.
Beautiful little horse. It is God's gift to the world. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. Thank you for...
And now, here's your Congressman, Walter Jones.
Welcome to the December edition of Washington Watch. Today's guest is Congressman John Fleming, who represents the 4th District of Louisiana since 2008. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee and National Resources Committee. Congressman Fleming is a veteran of the United States military who earned his medical degree through a Navy scholarship program. After serving 6 years in the United States Navy as a medical officer, Congressman Fleming started both a medical practice and a group of small businesses in Louisiana. I am delighted to have John Fleming on our show today because there's not an issue more important that has the people of the 3rd District of North Carolina, like myself, confused. And I wanted John to be on the show today so we could talk about the Affordable Care Act, and we could also talk about the position of the Republican Party as the doctors like John Fleming have been working on a solution. And we will not get into that in great detail, but maybe summarize it. So John, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Walter. Thanks for having me.
John, I think coming from you, and I have many friends in the 3rd District who are doctors like yourself, do you think, I never thought that the federal government completely taking over our health care system was the answer.
Well, I quite agree with you, and in fact, in 2008, when I ran for office and was elected beginning 2009 service, as a physician, I came to Washington because I wanted reform of health care, but the problem I saw was government already had overtaken about half of our health care system, and it was deleterious to the other half. And so what I wanted to see is that we would begin to bring back a healthy marketplace that would give patient choices, more options and opportunity to those people who may have health problems or to prevent health problems. But instead, as you know, we got the Affordable Care Act, which essentially puts 100% of our health care, 1/6 of the economy, under government control, exactly the opposite of what we should have been doing.
John, I think that President Obama, when he made the statement that if you like your doctor or if you like your health plan, you can keep it. And I never know what's in anybody's mind or heart, and so I'm not going to make a judgment here today. But the fact that he has danced all around that, and I'm going to be very honest about it, he has danced all around that, and there is no way, and I'm going to ask your opinion, that they can fix this plan, can they?
Walter, I don't see any way, because it's like a skyscraper that's built on a very poor foundation. You can't repair that. You have to tear it all down and rebuild it. And as you well know, because you were here during that debate as I was, Republicans were not allowed to have any say into how the Affordable Care Act was created. It's highly bureaucratic, command and control, top to bottom, calcified, very rigid, and that's the reason why instead of rates going down, premiums are going up. Instead of being able to keep your doctor, you're limited to a small number of doctors, and in some cases specialties that you don't need, or specialties you do need are not available, and all the other problems that we're seeing with it today.
Well, I would, if you can, I know that we have 5, 6, or 7 doctors in the Republican Party on the House side that have been working for over a couple of years, I think,
yes,
on a position that we could offer, and I would hope in the new year of 2014 would be the right timing for this hard work that you and others have done to get to the point of introducing a bill. Is that reasonable? Or?
Well, absolutely, and in fact, since 2010, we've actually doubled that number. We're up to around 15 MDs, and we also have a podiatrist, we have a psychologist, we have a couple of nurses. If you add all the healthcare workers together, including the veterinarian that we have now, we're up to over 20 healthcare providers. And so leadership does accept our input, and we've hopefully tried to be a big part of that. And I think that's fundamentally necessary in order to move us forward. There's probably, in one shape or form, as many as 200 different measures that Republicans in the House have advanced. Everything from liberalizing or broadening the health savings accounts, which is a measure I have, many other things having to do with reform of junk lawsuits and so forth. There have been comprehensive measures, piecemeal measures, and the very last thing that's been done is a small group of us from the Republican Study Committee came together and ciphered out a hall of fame of the best pieces of everything and created the American Healthcare Reform Act. And your viewers can learn more about it if they go to the Republican Study Committee website. They can just simply Google RSC and American Healthcare Reform Act, and it'll bring them right to it, and they can learn all the details or just the top lines of this, I think, very valuable bill.
John, I thank you for giving the website, because I really hope that the citizens of the 3rd District will take a look at what's been proposed. And you know, I've had so many people over the last several years to say, yeah, there's some problems in the healthcare systems, whether it be affordability or accessibility or some other areas. But, you know, why do you in Congress feel, not so me personally, why do you in Congress feel like that you, instead of taking it bill by bill or step by step, you have to take this massive takeover? And you and I both know, John, that the president didn't want to take it step by step. He wanted to show that the federal government could be in the healthcare area, and I just don't think it works.
Well, I think the proof is in the pudding today. Ever since October 1st, we've learned of the massive disaster. Remember, the people who put together this bill, which is now law, are the same people that put together the website, or at least they hired the people, and you see how problematic that is. But you know, we can fix websites. What we can't fix is the promises that have been broken. Number one, the president guaranteed that your rates would go down by $2,500 a year, and they may actually go up as much as $7,500 a year on average per family. He said that if you like your health care plan, you can keep it, period. There was no other punctuation but that. We know that now is not true. We may see as many as 129 million Americans losing their health plan and have to be in search of something else. He said you could keep your doctor, and we're finding that that's not true either. There's even a report out now that says that you may not be able to keep your medication, that many of the valuable, wonderful medications that are used for cancer, for heart disease, multiple sclerosis, and other things may not be available. And even if you pay out of pocket, can't be used against your deductible under Obamacare regimes. And then finally, in many cases, even though the premiums may be higher, the deductibles and copayments are even higher too, so you're actually getting less bang for your buck. And the reason for that, of course, is the marketplace, the competition that exists between insurance companies. That's all being reconfigured, reformatted for government benefit, and then added mandates, 10 essential benefits, such as requiring you, Walter, to purchase maternity care, which I know you're going to never use. So these are the problems that are in the system. And again, it's government knows best, and we all know that the marketplace where consumers, patients, can make the individual choices for themselves always works much better.
Well, John, I hope that the White House, as we move forward, and here we are in December, and 2014 is right around the corner, and I just believe sincerely that as we get into the new year that, and I could be wrong, but nothing's going to be fixed. Nothing's going to be any better than it is today. And I would hope, it's hard to read this White House, but I would hope that there would be some outreach to members of Congress, and especially those of you who are in the medical field and have the experience that I don't have. and time will tell. But you've already articulated it very well that the number of people that are still very, very frustrated, and many of them because they still can't get on the website, to be honest with you. And then the increased costs and not being assured that you stay with the same medical group that you've been with. So,
if I could,
sure,
I'd like to outline what I think is likely to happen problematically. Number one, we've already seen the website. Number two, almost 6 million Americans have lost their insurance. That's in the individual marketplace of insurance. We think that beginning after January 1st, throughout the year, as the year progresses, many people in small business and either larger corporations as well will lose their insurance and have to sign up for an ACA-approved insurance, which will, again, be much more costly. But in addition to that, many companies will be restricting insurance among family members, will be telling full-time workers that they're going to have to give up their job altogether or go down to part-time and then have to go into the exchange and purchase their own insurance. So this is going to affect the employment, it's going to affect the economy, and it's going to drive prices up even more. And then the next thing that is likely to happen along the way is that if not enough young adults sign up, because they're the ones that are going to be called upon to pay for the cost for those people with pre-existing illnesses. And as they get sticker shock, seeing their premiums 3 times what it would be otherwise, then if they opt out and opt not to go into it, and that's very likely, the numbers so far are not very good for that, then the rates the next year for those who are on insurance will go up even more. And we get into what's called adverse selection and the so-called death spiral of insurance. And if that happens, we really need to revisit this whole law. And I think along the lines of these measures that we've talked about, the first thing we need to do is repeal the Affordable Care Act, because we need affordable care, right, and the promise is being broken on that. And what our measure does, the American Healthcare Reform Act, is it starts off by dealing with junk lawsuits, which I know has been a problem in North Carolina in the past. So we put in that reform that saves costs to patients. We have insurance across state lines. We require transparency of pricing and competition over among insurance companies as well as healthcare providers. Many different measures that can be done that will actually enhance the affordability and create more choices. Pooling, for instance, of people who work in or own small businesses with greater groups. There are plenty of ways that we can get coverage for people who have had difficulty in the past with pre-existing illnesses, not only with the pooling mechanisms that we're talking about, but also with high-risk pools that have been very successful in over 30 states. So we have plenty of options should Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act implode or collapse. We're ready to go with something that really has proven ability to make healthcare efficient and pro-choice, patient-centered, where the relationship between you and your doctor remains fully intact and the trust relationship doesn't end.
Well, I sincerely believe that early next year, I think the House maybe will have an opportunity, and this might be me dreaming, but I believe it could be initiated by the White House, to be honest with you. And dreams sometimes do come
absolutely.
true. John, let's switch gears for just a moment. You and I both serve on the Armed Services Committee, and I have Camp Lejeune Marine Base and Cherry Point Marine Air Station in the district, and the sequestration, the military is very concerned about the situation that we might be in 2014. We've already had a taste of it in 2013. Yes, right. And yet you and I both know that the government cannot continue to spend what it doesn't have. And I mean, but to me personally, I think the Constitution says you will have a strong military. Yes. So I'm very pro a strong military, right, but just some of your thoughts, because you did serve in the Navy. Sure. and you were on the Armed Services Committee.
Well, I think that we have a sacred duty as members of Congress to be sure and live up to the oath that we made to the Constitution, and that is that we would stand up and maintain a sound defense. And we have a responsibility, as you know, as the only superpower. Think of the peace that we've had around the world since World War II as a result of our ability to suppress rogue regimes, imperialism, and other things, aggressors that have been around the world. And with sequestration, what we're seeing is a progressive deterioration of our capabilities, readiness, and training. We find out that we are cannibalizing spare parts off of some F-18s to put on other F-18s. That in my case, I have Barksdale Air Force Base, which is B-52s. We have half of the air crews certified and ready to go in case of emergency, the other half that are just flying simulators and can't go if they're called upon. And that's with the cuts that have happened already. With sequestration, the cuts become progressive. Right. They get worse. And so the generals and the admirals are telling me, and I'm sure they're telling you the same thing, that we're hanging on by a string. Another round of cuts could be devastating to our military and also affect the businesses and the economy surrounding the bases in our district. So I join with you in support that we return those dollars back to defense. The defense has taken on far more burden than any other part of our budget.
Well, your point is well made, because what I hear from many of the Marines down in my district, both non-commissioned as well as general officers, is that we have just about worn out our equipment in Afghanistan. And you know this probably better than I do, John. A lot of that equipment, they just leave it there because it's not worth the investment. Right. Bring it back and to rework it.
Yeah.
So I think that we are going to be in a situation, if we don't continue to upgrade what we have the best we can, that we will be in some dire situations. And I mean, even recently, I think that China was flexing its military muscle recently in the news releases, and so we need to make the commitment that you just talked about to rebuild the military, and it won't happen overnight.
No, not at all. And once you lose it, it's very expensive to regain it. We've learned that lesson over and over again after World War II, after Korea, after Vietnam. We've had to rebuild, and when we send troops in, undertrained and under-equipped, the casualty rates are much higher than what they need to be. And so we don't want to put ourselves in that position. And also, to maintain a strong military gives us far better results when it comes to diplomacy.
Sure.
Having that backup there is always important. And these aggressors around the world, they're going to test us. They already, as you pointed out in China, they've already declared some additional airspace, and they just want to see how we respond to that. And we certainly want to be diplomatic. We don't want to be getting into adventures that we don't belong in. But again, I believe in peace through strength. President Reagan said that, and I think it's as true today as it was when he said that.
Well, I agree totally with you and President Reagan, because I think that history has proven those nations that do maintain a strong military seem to, from time to time, be able to discourage any type of attack or any type of action against a nation that's got a strong military. Yes. So, John, we only have about a minute left, but I want to first thank you for joining me on the Armed Services Committee as we tried to get the amendment, and we did on the House side, and didn't do too well with the Senate, but on the House side, that would allow a chaplain of any religion to close a prayer based on his faith and dictates of his heart. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll support you again next year in further attempts. I mean, the people who fight the most and the hardest should be the ones we should protect the freedoms first.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you very much for being on the show today. I think the citizens of the 3rd District certainly did learn a whole lot about the Affordable Care Act and maybe some options to it. And if you stay for just another second or so, we're going to have Glenn Downs, my Chief of Staff, to come in to talk about some issues that have been brought to his attention. Thank you, John Fleming.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great being with you, Walter.
Welcome to the second part of the December edition of Washington Watch. I'm delighted to have my Chief of Staff and your Chief of Staff, Glenn Downs. I want to talk about a few issues, and Glenn, welcome.
Thank you very much, Congressman. And here in December, the issues that people have been calling your offices, both in North Carolina and in Washington, about are the issues that you and Dr. Fleming were just discussing. Obamacare and sequestration and the military, and where are we at towards the end of the year. We've gotten a lot of, as you know, a lot of very specific kind of horror stories of Affordable Care Act, of people finding out that they really are having policies canceled and huge premium increases. And what have you heard as you've traveled around the 3rd District? What are some specific examples?
Well, Glenn, everything from the can't get on the website to don't know what my choices are, don't understand the pricing issues of it, and I mean, even for my wife and I, we had to really get some help to figure out where we were going with it. So I know that for many of the citizens of the 3rd District, I know the trouble you've been in, because it's hard to figure out exactly how this Affordable Care or Obamacare, whatever you want to say, is going to fit, so to speak. So there's a lot of frustration out here. I think John Fleming, Dr. Fleming, gave a great analysis, and you and I and our staff are hearing from a lot of people, and we're doing the best we can to help guide them. But sometimes there's no light in the darkness, so to speak.
Well, I spoke yesterday to a senior citizen down on the southern end of your district who called in, who said, I now understand why Republicans were willing to shut down the government in a final attempt to delay or change the Affordable Care Act. You and Dr. Fleming talked about some possible legislative remedies. What will make things better with people facing much higher premiums in some cases, losing the coverage that they've had? What's your assessment of how likely it is in early 2014 that this might get addressed in a way that really materially affects your constituents' pocketbooks?
Glenn, I think the only way that it's going to have an impact is for the White House to publicly acknowledge that they don't know how to fix the problem. If they say that, then they come back to Congress and ask the House and the Senate to work together to figure out how to fix the problem and create a system that is in the best interest of the people. But to me, I agree with what John said, and I know you've said it to me, and I voted this way, is to repeal Obamacare. Just stop it. Do I think that will happen between now and the first year? No. But I do think that we get into April, May, or June, and they still have the problems that they have today, then there might be a willingness from the White House to reach out to the House and Senate to say, I need your help. I don't know.
Well, shifting gears briefly, if we could, on this issue of sequestration, which were the automatic budget cuts that come from discretionary spending pots in both domestic and security budgets. That was part of one of the other earlier budget agreements. Everybody remembers that so-called super committee that was supposed to come up with all these savings. They didn't do it. It triggered this sequestration. And so many efforts are walled off from spending cuts that those things that do get cut really do get whacked. Now, you voted against sequestration, but you were also somebody that thought we needed to get control of spending. So if somebody died and made you king, A, what would you have done? How would you have set this up? You got in control of spending. And then B, given where we are right now, what do you think was most likely to happen going forward?
Well, for me personally, I felt that as long as this nation has to borrow money to pay its bills, and that's what we do every time we raise the debt ceiling, which I didn't vote for, raise the debt ceiling is so that we can spend more money and pay last year's bills. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense when you're having to borrow money to do that. I have been very outspoken about the billions and billions and billions of dollars that go into Afghanistan.
Which, by the way, are not subject to sequestration.
No, they're not, because they're outside the budget process. It's just borrowed money from cyberspace that's going to be paid for one day. by our children and grandchildren. But it's not part of the budget process. You're exactly right.
One of the areas that will be felt, to the extent that there are sequestration cuts, it will be felt in the military-based communities in eastern North Carolina at some level. We just don't know how much yet. And people are concerned about the future of those bases, always, as I guess they should be. Governor Pat McCrory was here this month, and you met with him along with a bipartisan group of members of Congress. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you guys and gals are doing to look forward to protect those bases?
Glenn, thank you. I think that Governor McCrory fully understands the importance of the bases from the standpoint of national security, but also for the economic opportunities that they create for many, many citizens of the Tar Heel State. And he just wanted to reach out to members of Congress and say, listen, we need to work together for the good of our military bases, and we can do certain things at the state level. You can do certain things at the federal level. Let's have more communications, how we can work together, particularly as we begin this 2014 year and during the year of 2014. I was very encouraged and want to thank the governor and his staff who came up here to better reach out to say, let's work together for the good of our bases. And I feel very encouraged. And Glenn, we got 17 seconds, so with that, I'd like to take a moment to thank our men and women in uniform and say to each and every one of you watching this show, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and may God continue to bless America. Thank you very much.